You know how sometimes you just play that game that reminds you that not all AAA productions are complete trash? I just played that game. And that game happens to be Guardians of the Galaxy for all the consoles and PC and stuff that you're used to seeing it come through. But amazingly, and I'm just going to be upfront with it, it's probably my game of the year. And considering we're only 2 years into the decade, well, 1.5 years into the decade, probably a contender for game of the generation, game of the decade. Let's just get straight into it. And you're probably thinking, "What a world!" Here I am recommending like a cape game, a Marvel game made by Eidos Montreal. Now, of course, Eidos Montreal don't deserve the flack they get for the Avengers. I think the Avengers was an interesting project to put them on in the first place, but they're known for it now. It's a game that's theirs, and they have to kind of own up to that. But of course, before that, they made the Deus Ex reboot games, Mankind Divided, and what was the other one? Not Reject Humanity. That's a different thing. Anyway, moral of the story is they made the Deus Ex games, and they were fantastic games. And then they got put onto Avengers, and now they've got put onto Guardians of the Galaxy. And you would be forgiven to look at it and think, oh, I mean, it's come out after the movies come out. It's in between. It's telling a different story. It's telling the comic book story, very much closer to the origins, I guess, of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But it's still a very similar. Like, it's the same team. It's Quill, Star Lord. I can't think of any of the other fun names they come up with during the thing, but it's Star Lord, it's Drax, it's Gamora, it's Rocket, it's Groot, and the team is not starting out, but it's the newest edition. This is after Gamora's joined the team. It's about 10 missions in, and so they're still feeling each other out. There's still a lot of animosity. There's still a lot of team building to be done. They go off, the easy gig to try and capture a monster to sell. Of course, calamity happens, as is the case with a lot of these things, and we see, yeah, we see what happens from there. The Nova Corps involved, all these classic ones that come from that arc of Marvel, the Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of like the wider space universe. Um, and it's really hard to not spoil. I've gone out of my way, and they made a very big deal in the review embargo documents to not spoil, but lots of stuff happens. Lots of familiar names do kind of come up. There's lots of hints and nods to obviously multi-university and all that kind of stuff. Sure, but this game stands alone as just a fantastic game. I probably like it better than the second movie, and I probably like it as much, if not more, than the first movie. And I never thought I would say that I'm enjoying a video game version of a James Gunn film. Or the thing is, it is not a film; it is a video game, and so I guess we have to really look at it from that gameplay point of view. What does the gameplay bring? What does it add? And it adds not much. Like it's hard to describe. You play a third person shooter. You play as Quill. You order the team to do the different moves. Drax especially is good at stunning enemies. Groot's good at holding enemies in place. Gamora's damage. Rocket is AOE damage. So it's a good mix of your standard tropey video game damage. Later on, you unlock their abilities. You combo them. You learn the combos. You build up your own strength. But the game itself isn't particularly complex. Yet, I only found myself dying once or twice, and once of them was pretty cheap, but it doesn't matter. The gameplay isn't particularly difficult, but the one thing the gameplay does is it really scales well. When you start off, you feel weak. You really have to be cautious. You really have to be mindful. And then later on, you're fighting those same minions, and you're just bodying them. It does that sense of scale. And then when you get to the end boss, you have to combo properly. You have to time it properly just to get through it as quickly as possible. And so while the combat isn't particularly complex, I always found it fun. I always had fun seeing all the combos and stuff go off. And I feel like being that little bit more tactical made it more engaging. And the thing that carries the game is the cast. The banter between them is just fantastic. It is genuinely one of those games where I was just happy to let the game play out in front of me. Like all the things that they were saying, all the things that were happening, just built on a universe. It built on the game. It built on the world, and it made you feel like you were experiencing a comic book. And now it could be argued it goes for too long. I mean, I've thought a single player. Keep that in mind. It is a single player No DLC planned as far as I can tell, but you never know with that. No microtransactions. No, it's just a straight up single player game. One of those classic old games that you're used to playing. You put it in, you spend your has to be 20 plus hours. It was at least 20 plus hours I spent playing this game. And experiencing the story and experiencing the performances, experiencing the banter, all the silly little jokes, like the recurring fridge joke that pays off multiple times, and just all these great little connections, and you feel the team become more dynamic as it goes on. You feel them become closer. You deal with each individual character fighting their fears, and that is one of the big themes is them all grappling with their demons, and it never grates, and it never really feels out of place. It never feels like they've tried hard to make it happen. How I don't know how they did it. I'm just so impressed that they managed to make me care about a Guardians of the Galaxy game, and B, this Guardians of the Galaxy game. Like, look, the Avengers, I'm sure is fun if you're playing 4-player co-op, but it was too late to capitalize on the Avengers. That arc is over. At least with Guardians, the new movie's coming, so there's a tie-in. But that's the best part of this. It reminds me a lot of the way DC does their movies. Like Joker doesn't tie into anything. Suicide Squad doesn't necessarily tie into anything. I'm sure there'll be a sequel to Suicide Squad at least, but it doesn't have to worry about the wider universe implications. It can tell its story. It can have its characters. They can have an arc. Quill has an arc. Gamora has an arc. Every single person in that has an arc. The new characters they introduce have arcs. It's great. It is genuinely surprising how good this game is. Not that I went into it thinking it would be bad. Yeah, from the first trailer, I was on board. I felt like it looked like it would at least be fun. If nothing else, the game looked like it would be fun. The thing that surprised me was just how engaging, engrossing. I like the game is set into chapters, and I think it's a really smart way to split it up because sometimes I was not overwhelmed by how much was happening or by how emotional it was or anything quite so melodramatic, but it was just I was happy to go. You know what? That's a good cap for tonight. I'm gonna stop now. I'm gonna go to bed. I'll wake up tomorrow. I'll watch the next episode. If there's the one thing that it does brilliantly is it takes enough from everything, every other good game that I can think of to make its own thing. It does sense of scale like Asura's Wrath. It does sense of scale like God of War. It has this sense of scale to it. It does those interpersonal moments, especially with one of the characters being a teenager. It does those moments real well. It reminds you of a little bit of The Last of Us, except not gruff smuggler as the other guy. It does enough to keep the combat engaging, but not. It doesn't dominate the conversation, and you could argue that's probably its weak point. But I still felt it engaged enough. It does everything. It does the not the mixed choice at the end, but the convincing factions to join you thing of Mass Effect, and it pays that off. It just everything that it does, it pays off, and it's amazing to me that I sit to you today in the year 2021. Saying that one of the first, we've just adopted this new rating system, and one of the first masterpieces that I'm going to declare as a masterpiece is Guardians of the Galaxy. Play it. It's game of the year. I don't know what beats it. I just don't know what beats it this year. I would love a year where I have to debate what's better than this. I'm not convinced there is. There's so many good games this year already, and I still don't think anything touches how good Guardians of the Galaxy was. Be surprised with me. Enjoy it. Have fun with it because it was a welcome surprise and a wild ride.